Anyway, guys, it's Friday. Bring it in with me, Jarod Hector, and Coach David Thorpe and Henry Abbott. How are you guys?
Terrific.
Good.
So we, as you all jumped into this conversation, we're talking about the upcoming Netflix series Untold, and the first episode is going to talk about the 2004 incident, colloquially known as the Malice in the Palace. And Henry wrote a great story today on TrueHoop about lessons learned from the Malice in the Palace. And honestly, I want to start there and really talk about, I remember exactly where I was when it happened. I was in South Orange, shout out to Judy Goodwin, at a place called Toro Loco, Mexican restaurant, with just a bunch of friends. And it was a mixed group. And I'm someone who obviously paid attention to the NBA, sports, etc. And the questions 07079, that's correct, Judy. And I was saying, this is a real problem. Why do fans feel as though they can engage and get themselves involved in what is happening on the floor? And I was in the minority in that response. Everybody else is like, but why are they? And I'm like, okay, I'm not having this conversation with you because I can see you getting angry right now, like you want to fight. And I'm like, but why? Like, I'm just asking a simple question. So I want to open it up to you, Henry. What were the lessons, or what was something you thought about when you saw the doc, and then what it makes you thought about when you remembered that incident?
The documentary is really strictly focused on like arena footage and the people who were there and just an NBA game gone awry. But it really made me feel like January 6th and, the way the police handled Black Lives Matter protests. And I really was like, okay, so a question that's not in the documentary, but that's just in my head the whole time is, can we make Black people feel safe? And the answer is bananas. Just put that, like this will come out on Tuesday on Netflix. I thought it was impeccable. It's just an hour. It didn't like linger on it too long. Jermaine O'Neal, who you see on the screen right now, is like the man. Like he explains things in a way where like, I dare you to disagree with Jermaine on anything. Others are too, but I do think that just ask yourself the question, can we keep Black people safe? And then watch as there's a mob, everybody does everything wrong, but we get to a point where it's unsafe for the Pacers to be on the court. The police finally arrive. Reggie Miller's amazing in narrating this. And like the first thing they're going to do, Reggie Miller sees like one of the first officers on the scene as there are people brawling all over the stadium, fans on the court, and he's going to grab his mace and he's about to mace Jermaine O'Neal. And Reggie Miller was like, what are you doing? Like, get these people off the court. Like, don't mace him, right? And then, there's this, a chair is thrown, very dangerous for lots of people. And like, who's keeping the Pacers safe? And the answer is an assistant coach and William Wesley personally escort the Pacers off the court. And all the security guards and all the police and all the people who are paid to keep everyone safe in the arena are not helping at all. Like I don't think, this might be a slight overstatement. I don't think in all the footage in the documentary, there's a single incident of like someone who's supposed to keep people safe, keeping people safe. Like, there is a little moment, there's a little second of like a security supervisor who has an office under the arena. And she's like, yeah, all the security guards are swinging by joking about faking an injury so they could collect some kind of workers' comp or, it's like, oh my God. like, just like Masai Ujiri's sheriff's deputy, right? Who like, here are a bunch of people who are supposed to keep everybody, including Black people, safe, who are not, but I'm thinking maybe they could get a little something for themselves out of it. Like, it doesn't feel isolated anymore. I'm sorry that I was confused in real time. And it was confusing. Everybody did everything wrong. I'm not going to defend anybody in this thing, but it's amazing. They show clip after clip after clip of like, venerable TV journalists in the days to follow talking about the players' salaries, their income, like as if that has anything to do with anything. And it just like triples down on this idea that there's like a kind of bad person who causes fights, and it comes from being spoiled or wearing baggy pants. So they have a dress code and massive suspensions, and it doesn't age well. The NBA's handling of this, having the referee on the scene is Tim Clown Donaghy, right?
Good job, NBA.
He's the guy who's going to calm all this down. A guy who's had the cops call on him a gazillion times. I've seen the reports, right? And then they have security guards who are not on video, not evident there, even though when James Dolan needs a security guard to get Charles Oakley out of there, they got tons of security, right? Nope, no one here. The police are running there too late with their mace to mace the wrong people. It just feels like, maybe there's some lesson for Ron Artest. Maybe there's some lesson for Jermaine O'Neal, but was there a lesson for all the people who didn't do their jobs to keep everybody safe that day? I hope so.
I mean, and you made the point correctly, Henry, that the thing that people fail to realize, police and security were already there in the building. Like, what is taking so long to respond? You're already downstairs in the bowels. Get up to the event level and do what you have to do. Do your job, as Coach Belichick often says. Coach, your thoughts.
I mean, I could just say so many things. I think. First of all, I'll just start with this. Not that many years after that event, I was in Sacramento for a week working out one of my players during the season, and we would always go late at night because I don't like messing around in the arena where where workers are there. I just try to keep myself private. And every night Ron Artest was there with his daughter, and he's just the most pleasant. He was a very pleasant, sweet man, mild-mannered, polite, and I watched him play all year that year, and he was just a basketball player. It doesn't mean he isn't capable of having a bad moment. I mean, we all do. We all lose our temper, whatever. But it definitely, I've always thought about that in relation to this, in the context of this event. So much of our problems here is a lack of understanding that we're all about the same. And we might look different or pray to a different God or whatever. And there's just too many people who are just so uptight about those differences. And uptight is the nicest thing I can say, because obviously it swings far, far worse than that. And you guys have seen The Watchmen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you? Okay, I don't want to spoil it for you, but basically, there's a character that's got a KKK robe in his closet that really surprises you, but it shouldn't. And it's much more symbolic, and I won't go any further than that because you haven't seen it, of not just one part of society, but in general, there's a lot of really scared, angry, hateful people. And you said to me today on the phone, Henry, about what happens when the mob really it blows up. All of that comes out, right? I don't think a pacifist loses themselves in a mob. I am that. I've been a really angry people before. I don't get angry, but most people have that seething anger or fear, which I think probably is connected inside of them. It comes out, and yeah, we just have a certain segment of society that doesn't even want to get it. It's really no different than the COVID argument we can have later with the vaccine. They don't want to know the truth. They don't agree with you, Henry. They don't think that there's a problem with Black people in America feeling safe. They would argue with you. Evidence, schmevidence. Like they're just not going to buy it. Doesn't mean we can't stop arguing. We have to. We have to continue to make the case soberly, rationally, passionately. I think this is going to be a kicking off point, this documentary. I can't wait to watch it with my son, who doesn't know much about the incident except what he's heard. And I think it's going to unveil some layers that most of us don't know about.
And I think there's another important part, which is like that Pacers team was good.
Were they the best record at that point in the league?
Yes, and they had been the year before, and they were the Pistons beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals the year before, barely, and then won the championship, and they just knew they were good. And then they got Steven Jackson, and they were rolling everybody, and the only team that they had trouble with was the Pistons. And that night in November, early in the season, right, this is the game they'd all circled, and they went in there without Reggie Miller, who was in a suit, and they just waxed the Pistons. And that's when they were like, oh, it is freaking game on. Jamal Tinsley does not look great in this. Maybe we all remember this. This isn't new, but this all happens like a minute left, very late in the game. The game's over. And by the way, a lot of the fans in the good seats have left. So according to Reggie Miller, like the drunk people from the back have moved down to the front. Doesn't help. But then Jamal Tinsley checks in and says, hey, Ron, you can get your foul now. And other people who know Ron better are like, why would you say that?
Right.
You say that to Ron. Like,
right.
So Reggie Miller talks about good Ron. And he was being good Ron. Like everything was good. now we know he says nothing. He was wrestling with depression and anxiety like the whole time, and is very prone to different, falling apart emotionally in different ways. Another thing that I'm hoping now would be dealt with better, but that time it was like his teammates had to kind of like try to manage Ron, right? And so they did their best, and it was often frustrating, and often he was in that particular game, he was like the best player in the world. And anyway, so they were they were managing Ron as best they could without training, and then this guy throws a cup, and we learned about how little filter Ron has, right?
It's lighting a powder keg, right? Like that's the thing. Like as you said, Henry, that Pacers team was excellent. Jermaine O'Neal was multiple time All NBA. Like he was like excellent. Like that team was really good. And you mentioned about Artest, the thing that we know now, right? Anxiety, depression, different things that he dealt with in 2004. We clearly didn't have the language to deal with that, and certainly not in the masculine, high testosterone NBA world where managing Ron just means like calm down, and it's like that's not like there is a reason why after he won the championship with the Lakers, Ron spent all that time shouting at his therapist, right? And the work that he did with his therapist, because that was so instrumental in keeping him balanced. Think about having those types of issues, anxiety, depression, having to play an intense physical game like basketball on the biggest stage. It's probably going to do some weird things to you, right? So you get to a spot on a table where you're like, all right, my team's around me, I'm cool. Let me just get on this table and mellow out. The next thing you know, a cup or whatever comes like that is, again, set it off. It's just like, holy hell. And look, I am not an advocate of violence or anything of that nature, but my position has always been, fans, you are not a part of the show. Like you were there to watch the show, cheer, boo, whatever, but actually engaging with the human participants in the show. That's not, your ticket doesn't give you license to do that. And if you step onto the field of play or get engaged with them, I'm sorry, but if something happens to you, you kind of had it coming, right? Like I don't go swimming in shark infested waters because I know I'm not trying to get eaten by a shark, right? Like I just don't do that.
And if you do, you won't be surprised.
Well, I'll be dead, right? So it's like, I mean.
Well, there's a guy who, according to like the head of security now talking after the fact, like there was this guy that they were already going to kick out. They were going to take his season tickets. And, things start going awry, this, that. Finally, by a miracle, like Ron Artest is back on the court and nothing terrible has happened yet. Like it's going to be okay. They're going to restore order. And then this guy is on the court, bald fist, stepping up to Ron Artest. And like, so Ron hits him. Jermaine O'Neal like almost kills him with one.
I was going to say, if he connected on that hit, that dude was definitely going to die.
Like that guy just I don't know what happened before that night, but like they are already decided that he shouldn't be there. Well, like Jarod said, do your job. Why are you making Ron Artest solve this problem on the court where he's supposed to feel safe?
We're better, now. I think Westbrook's an example when fans do the stupid stuff that they do. One reason why I stopped going to NFL games is just a bunch of, I'm not going to say the word, but they're drinking. And it's just, I don't like being surrounded by those fools. But now they point to security and they run that guy out. And I have a feeling if we did it back then, the players would feel a lot safer that, hey, you do that, there's a huge consequence to you forever. Banned for the season, banned for life, whatever they do. But no, when the world is, it's all in my hands, that is part of the problem, is those guys didn't feel like anyone had their back.
That's exactly the problem. Yeah.
Administratively, I got to take it myself. That motherfucker is going to pay for what he did because no one else is going to make him pay.
Well, if we watch that video, as if you're a Knicks fan, like just watch William Wesley. Like this is why players will go to the Knicks. I mean, this is a metaphor for it, right? But like freaking, he's like, he's there as back. He's a Pistons season ticket holder who happens to sit in the front row, and you can, it's kind of like, what has to be done here, right? And God knows, all the people who have salaries to solve that problem are absent or trying to mace Jermaine O'Neal, and he's like, okay, like let me get out of my season ticket holder seat and go fucking lead, since no one else here seems to know how to do that, right? Like, what a relief that must be. There's one other funny part, which is that Ron Artest gets to the locker room.
I know this part.
And he's basically like, he's like, I just didn't want to see Jermaine because like Jermaine's just all about winning, and Jermaine was just going to be like, Jermaine was going to want to kill me, Like, and you can see Jermaine's just kind of like,
Have you guys ever been in a brawl?
No.
Oh no.
So I have been as a coach. I don't know if I ever told you this story, but it's really relevant to what we're talking about right now. And there's a punchline that's going to make you laugh, but also kind of make you sick. I'm coaching a state AAU championship, game one, for a friend of mine. It's not my team, although I coached all the players except for one. And I'm talking about 7 mid to high major D1 players, including a kid that started for Duke and won a national championship. And he wasn't even my best player. We were loaded with super great talent. But their normal head coach, it was 19 and under. These were grown men, all graduated high school, ready to go to college, except for maybe one player. Actually, the kid who went to Duke was an underclassman. That was it. The other kids were all graduated. This was like June. So they already done with school. And the head coach, who's a friend of mine, had a wedding. He's the dad. He's like, I'm coaching these boys since 4th grade. Mostly black with some white kids, including his son. They were all like brothers, all of them growing up at different high schools, but they played AAU together and grew up together. He said, they're going to win a national championship, but I got to win state, and we've never won state. Can you make sure they win state of Florida? And then I think we'll cruise from there. So, and he said he was going out of town anyway. So I volunteered to coach him. I don't know all the kids really well, but I coached some of them for a couple of days here and there. And some of the better ones I coached for years. So guys, we play a team from Tallahassee, and their parents are talking all this shit, and their team is talking all this shit. And the kids had told me this is probably our best competition. So I was all ready for a tough game. We play no defense first possession. They score. And I'm thinking, what did I volunteer even do this for? One of our guys, a great player named B.B. Walden, who ended up being the all-time USF leading rebounder, jumps out of the net, jumps out of the court, throws a long baseball pass to a kid named Cedric Powell, went to FAU, 6-foot guy, catches it, reverse dunk. I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun. We blow them out. Someone kept track, 25 dunks in the game, and their parents are going ape shit at the referees, and their kids are doing it. My guys we're just playing basketball. We're fine. And they fucking light up one of our players named Keith Bailey, whose birthday is today, actually. He's like 45 now, 43 or whatever. And they ring him. And I've got a kid on the bench, guys, that was Mr. Football for Florida.
Oh, boy.
Who used to play basketball with them, but he just became a football player. Yeah. Amazing running back, 5'9", 220. Uh-oh. Right? Imagine that.
Uh-oh.
Guys, he walks on the court. I don't know what he's doing. His name's Zane Gilmore. And he puts his big hand right at the kid's neck. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, it's my cousin. His cousin is Keith. It goes crazy. Some of the Tallahassee guys grab chairs. I have a kid named Desmond Allison, who's now dead, sadly, who went to Kentucky, started as a freshman, 5 months later, knocks the kid out. It is a mob scene. And I'm just standing watching. I can't control these guys. And I'm watching most of our players trying to hold each other back. They don't want to fight. The Tallahassee guys are mad. The game, they call the game. I swear to you, the AU tournament director says, all right, we're going to call it for Tampa because we were up 20-something, but we did start the fight. I'm like, guys, we're not getting kicked out of the event. It's like, no, you're the best team in the tournament. You just blew out the second best team. And we want you to represent Florida. I'm like, guys, I'm telling you right now, I know every kid on this team but Desmond Allison, who threw that sucker punch and knocked the kid out. If you don't kick him out of this event, I'm driving home and nobody can coach him. I said, I know Tubby Smith. That's who he signed for. And so I said, Desmond, if I kick him out, he'll want to beat me up. You got to kick him out and I'll talk to him. They kicked him out. I said, Desmond, I will not call Tubby Smith about this in a negative way if you agree to sit on the bench the rest of the week with me and be my assistant coach. You fucked up. And there's going to be a consequence to this. He could not have been more apologetic. He was great. So here's the punchline. We get in the locker room afterwards. I mean, there's a lot of heavy breathing. This is a fucking brawl. And the fucking white referee comes in and says, boys, I've been refereeing for 20 years. That's the greatest fight I've ever seen.
Oh, jeez.
I said, sir, can you get out of our locker room?
Jesus
like, I'm trying
Christ.
to calm our guys down. And he did, he left. But it just, there's a craziness that goes on with this stuff. These were 18 and 19-year-old kids. These weren't grown-ass men. Kids make mistakes. Grown-ass men should be doing this stuff. And my point is, in Detroit, I have not seen the video yet. I've just seen the trailer. There was a bunch of grown-ass men in the stands, right, Henry? It wasn't 19-year-olds causing the brawl, right?
Yeah, no, it's just drunk people.
Grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, Henry, the idea about no one protecting them, that's the situation, right? When everybody who's supposed to be doing their job and protecting and, serve and protect, right? That's what police people's jobs are. The team realized, well, it's just us, right? It's just me and my guys. So at that moment, it's fight flight, right? Yeah, Steven Jackson's going up to get Ron on the tank. He's like, no, wait, right? And if someone throws a punch on him, guess what? He's going to react in that moment. And again, it was handled poorly by everybody involved, particularly the people whose job it is to, again, make the players feel safe. I think we always forget, just because you're 6'8", 2 whatever, and you can jump 48 inches and all this other stuff, these are human beings, right? Like, they have the same limbic systems we do, like, probably better, but they're gonna I mean, they are elite athletes, so they're probably a little
limbic systems,
probably a little better, but
Jarod, it's not the movies. In the movies, the good guy somehow always is able to beat 25 bad guys. It really drives me crazy, actually. In real life, these are smart guys.
Right.
6'8", 250, always lose against 10 dudes. Always. Right? There's no way he wins. Even if the other 10 guys eventually go down, he's taking a beating. And they know that. That's the whole point of the fear of the mob to begin with.
So yeah, encourage everybody to watch that on Tuesday. And really, if you remember where you were, like, just go into it and think about what you thought at the time, and watch it from that point of view. And you're going to get really some interesting stuff, because I know Jermaine talked about he went to court and sued the league and actually won, and right. So yeah, because the league was, of course, wrong in how they handled every single thing. And of course, the dress code, which came as a result, was, one of the most ridiculous things that we ever saw. Anyway,
read the article too, because Henry had some great insight into lessons learned from that, I think. Yeah.
Moving on, I see someone threw in the chat there that Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala heading back to the Warriors. So let's talk about some free agency roundup news. I had in the doc winners and losers. I mean, that was tongue in cheek, because you don't know who won or lost. It's fucking August. We haven't played any games yet, but some teams did some interesting things. And I kind of want to just talk about, your impressions of what they did based on free agency alone. So let's start with the Knicks. Randy, who is our Knicks fan here, and he was not happy as we saw in our group text chat. Look, here's the reality. I like what the Knicks did. They brought back all their guys. Nobody is signed to there's no bad players on terrible deals on that team. Everything is movable. And it seems like every contract that last year, whether it's year 2 or year 3, is a team option. That's big, guys. That's a big thing. So the Knicks have a lot of flexibility. The question, of course, everybody has is, well, with what they just did, is that enough to compete in an already, what we see looks like a changing Eastern Conference? I don't know, but I like what the Knicks did. What do you guys think?
Well, I want to first say something you just said that was really the smart. We can't get smarter than what you already said, which is, how do we know it's August? That's where I think a lot of people are making a mistake, Jarod. If you're making a recipe from a box or from your grandma, and you made a bunch of times before, almost without question, you know exactly what you're getting. All right. If you're not sure and you're figuring stuff out and trying different things, the better you are as a chef, the better chance you can guess, I probably got this worked out. Most of these teams aren't really good chefs when it comes to making that right stew. And so I don't know. I mean, I think you're exactly right. We have to let it bake. Let's see what happens. I'll talk a lot about the Lakers with that. Your point on the Knicks is dead on. They just want to stay relevant until they have a moment to really grab, another difference maker. So don't suck. After a nice year, they finished in 4th. They got waxed by the Hawks, which I don't think was a surprise, and a healthier Hawks team anyway. And so let's just stay relevant. Let's continue to learn how to win. I always believe playing important games late in seasons and playoff games, if you can do that, are really valuable to your young players. There's just a different feeling to compete in April for a playoff seed as opposed to teams that have been out since February, March, right? It's just the pressure and whatever. So I think they'll be fine. I don't know that they'll stay top 6.
Right.
The East is freaking loaded for the first time in decades. And I think they're not hamstrung long term. And so I think that's smart. When they get a chance to get Zion, they're going to be able to get him.
Get excited, Randy.
That's the thing. I think it's about diamonds, right? So this summer, the ones who might move are Kawhi or Damien, etc., right? So the Knicks have the room to potentially receive one of them, but they didn't get him. Just like in 2010, they didn't get LeBron. So the question is, what do you do then? And the answer in 2010 was perfectly incorrect, right? Which was, just to do everything you can with the money, like, just fire all the guns, and they get already uninsurably injured Amari Stoudemire, right? And now you guarantee you're not going to get a different diamond down the road, right? Amari's a great guy, but it just didn't work out, right? So to me, like, this was the same test. This is the same James Dolan with the same kind of cap space now. And the only wrong thing is to what David was suggesting, like taking your options off the table down the road, just long term. Like, you're going to say, no, are we going to spend the money now? No, we're going to spend it long term. And come on, New York is going to love Kemba Walker. Like
he's coming home.
You can sell out the arena just with this. The NBA loves Kemba Walker. He's like everybody's favorite guy. He's from New York. He's probably going to be much better than he was when he was so injured, right? Like, I just think that we're going to have this like good competitive team. They're keeping the most important pieces and they're keeping their options for the future. Like, I think, yes, now that we accept they didn't get who they dreamed of getting, best possible.
I would throw in one more thing, which is one of the most important things, about the single most important thing for that franchise right now would be if you could wave a magic wand and make RJ Barrett a top 10 player in the league. And so we can't wave a magic wand. You got to Ted Lasso, right? You got to feed him a lot of royal jelly and find out, can he be that guy? Can he be top 20 all-star? Is he a level below that, but still Drew Holiday, which is borderline all-star here and there, but can be really important to win a championship? We don't know that. We know that he was the seventh best shooter in the league the last 42 games of the year from three. That's huge. What can he do defensively? Can he get to the free throw line a lot more? Can he develop a Chris Middleton mid-range game, similar size guy? Can he be a primary ball handler in important parts of the game? I don't know. If you've got Kawhi Leonard on your team, which they don't and won't probably, you're not going to find out nearly as much. So they don't have that. So to me, I'd go into the season, let's try to stay relevant, but let's also find out just where RJ, he's only in year 3 coming up, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Let's just see where we can get him. Because if this guy is that piece, that really special top 10, top 20 guy in the league, that really informs them a ton for what they'll do next, right? At least
absolutely. And I think as Knicks fans, you got to be happy with that, right? Just as Henry said, you didn't do anything to blow up the future of the team. It's just, you're so much easier now. In 2 years, all this money's off the books again, and you got all that money available. So, and again, to Coach's point, you've already got Obi Toppin, you got young guys who can be something, right? So I like what they have going on. And Kemba Walker coming home, that's huge. So the Bulls, guys. So I was looking at this and I said, all right, Lonzo Ball, I like it with Zach LaVine. That's cool. I was like, what are they going to do with Laurie? I don't know. They already got Vooch. And then when the DeMar DeRozan thing happened, I was like, okay, Chicago, I guess your thought process is we're going to try to make the playoffs, right? But I think the other big part about that with them is, are we doing the right things to make Zach LaVine happy? Because we want to keep him here, right? I think Zach is due for an extension, right? And so is he going to get the kind of deal he wants? He didn't. He used that word that players love to throw out. I want to get respected with my next deal, which just means y'all dudes better pay me the money, right? And so it'll be interesting to see what they do. I kind of like that team, though. Again, it's the East, and the coach's point, I don't know what it's going to look like middle of the season, but I think they have competent players. Billy Donovan, who well, coach from coaching down in Florida. I mean, he's not the best coach in the league, but he certainly ain't the worst, right? So
he's a good coach. He's not right. He's not bad. He's good.
So I kind of like it. I like what they're doing in Chicago. What do you think?
Henry, you can go first on this one. You're not gonna love what I have to say, I don't think.
I often refer to plus minus stats, and we talk about them all the time. And
are you talking about DeMar DeRozan on defense?
How could you tell? I'll acknowledge that, people who live and breathe NBA basketball will tend to. There's one little sticking point they have with these stats, which is they maybe undervalue shot creation, right? Just like bucket getters, like who can just score, like who has like that Kobe just manufacturing buckets thing. So maybe that's right? Maybe the stats are a little bit ignorant on this one point. Like every team is going to value that one skill a little more than dunks and threes does, right? That's where DeMar DeRozan sits, right? Like he's not worth anything like that kind of money and never has been, but every team seems to like his skill set, right? Who's right there? I don't know, but that does seem like a tremendous, they kind of put all their chips in on that guy, which is, that's a pretty, although, I mean, I love everything they've done other than that, right? That one, like, wow, that particular move was like a big bet on this guy who's not been a good defender and, hasn't been like Lillard's not a good defender, but he's so good on offense that you can make a case.
DeRozan isn't so good on offense. This is why I like the Lonzo pickup really well for them, because Lonzo is excellent on defense. And I love him sharing the backcourt with Levine. I love all the look aheads that Levine's going to get. And before you go, Coach, what I do like about what I saw with Zach with Team USA. Now, of course, Team USA is, you got to look at that with a grain of salt, because everyone looks great when they play against all the other great players in the world, right? But Zach's kind of guarding on Team USA, playing defense. Like, if he can do that, and Lonzo is his excellent self on defense, because, Vooch is not great on D, and we know what DeMar DeRozan is, I think at least the point of attack, they should be better defensively.
With DeRozan, I think it was 6th in defensive rate. He was in the bottom 6 percentile in defense this year, DeRozan was. And it wasn't like San Antonio was tanking the whole year. Vucevic is not a good defender as a big. He's problematic. I think you're exactly right on Lonzo, and I'll get to Lonzo and Zach in a minute. Zach LaVine is absolutely trying harder, with no question about that. I'm really happy with what I'm seeing from Zach in these games. He's not been a great defensive player, may never be. He is also not guarding typically NBA players over there. There's only a few.
That's also true.
Right. The NBA players are on his team, right? They're not on the other team. But he's trying, for sure. He's competing off the ball too. I like it. I don't know what the Bulls are doing with Tamar for that money. If you bring him in as your 6th man, 4-year, $18 million, I still maybe figure out overpaying him. But I get it, because now you have a bench scorer. Pat Williams, I love. Yeah. 20-year-old kid. So they're going to have some defensive liabilities there. Billy's going to have to do some serious coaching. And I love the Lonzo Zach thing, because Zach, I've always thought Zach was a very good me player, not selfish. I'm not saying selfish. He knew how to get his buckets. He was willing to be a we player. He just isn't very good at it. It's really hard to do. It's super hard to do. Chris Paul still struggles with that. Chris Paul always wants to be the we player, but they need him sometimes to be the me player. Drew Holiday had that issue the entire postseason. They needed him to shoot more. He did. He only had a couple of good games in the finals. Luckily, they won those games and won the championship. But he was really bad in some games because it's uncomfortable for him. Zach can do the me thing just fine. So having a guy like Lonzo that's all about the we game, and he can really shoot and guard, and he's such a great, I think he's a great passer.
Excellent.
Like, I'm much higher on Lonzo and LaMelo, even now, over the course of time. We'll see what happens, but I love Lonzo Ball. And so the DeMar thing, again, we said it. I just thought, what are you doing, guys? There's better players, or even equally productive players for way less money they could have had. But still, they're going to be better. The problem is, whereas the Knicks are good going forward, they need to be, when the Bulls finally get where one more player, they're not going to have any money for it.
Yeah.
I guess they could trade whatever, but DeRozan's not going to be an easy guy to trade.
No, that'll be that's the tough one about the DeRozan signing. And I'm wondering, to your point, Henry, it's that Knicks conundrum, right? It's like, okay, we got a little bit of money left. It's like, how about you just hold back a little bit, right? Let's just go with what we got. Maybe you re-sign Lowry, but I guess they didn't want to re-sign Markkanen. He's going to Charlotte.
He wanted to leave, he said. Mark, I don't know if he's going to Charlotte. Done. I know they were looking for a player like him. So, and I understand why the Bulls would want to keep, although Henry knows I feel this way. If you're not 100% convinced at trade deadline, you're going to keep a free agent or restricted free agent, you have to trade them. You're losing guys for nothing, especially lottery picks. I guess they could do a sign and trade. I don't know for sure, but I think they can do a sign and trade. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But Charlotte already has Miles Bridges as a starting four.
They sure do.
Who wants an extension? Who shot really well from 3 last year as a sick fucking athlete.
Yeah, Charlotte's
that plays in this league. Jump to 13 feet and shoot threes at 38% or whatever. Hello, at 6'8".
All the bridges are good. All the bridges are good.
All the bridges. We like all the bridges.
Right, that's true. Yeah, you're right. It's funny.
Draft anyone with the last name Bridges.
Yeah, get them all. Get them. There's gotta be more. Yeah.
So that's a little bit. So when you draw on the document, you put free agency winners and losers. I probably have the Knicks as neutral, slightly a winner because I think they'll stay relevant. If they don't do anything at all, then they might get pulverized this year in the East, which would be bad. I think they got some good mojo going. I think those guys know what they're doing now.
Yeah.
With the Bulls, because of the DeRozan deal, I kind of slide them a little bit negative because I love the Lonzo thing. A little bit negative, yeah.
And 3 years at 85.
Yes, fucking pricey.
That's the word. It's just very pricey for what I think what history has told us you're likely going to get. All right, Warriors, look, they're in a situation right now where we have to maximize the Steph Curry window, right? But at the same time, we got Wiseman and these young guys. How do we try to win a championship now, but also at the same time, keep our future looking good so that when Steph does eventually retire and it's not the man anymore in that way, we got Wiseman, we got all these young guys who we can build around. It's a tough thing to do, right? To do both. It's actually practically impossible, right? It's just the money's and it just never lines up. So they got Otto Porter, which, it's Otto Porter.
What did they pay for him?
Someone look up the Otto Porter deal. I don't think a ton.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, they got Otto. He's Otto Porter, which is fine. Look, everything for the Warriors is going to hinge on what does Klay Thompson look like when he comes back.
Correct.
If he comes back and it's like, oh, it's like Kevin Durant, he's fine. Great. If he comes back in January and we're like, we still need time, you got problems because, as much as Andrew Wiggins we like, and, there's still holes in his game, though he played a lot better this year. Wiseman still needs time to develop. We know that. And Kuminga will 1,000% need time to develop. So I just think that, Golden State, everybody's like, oh, we're going to come back and win a championship this year. I'm like, guys, I don't know. I don't know.
They might make the playoffs.
Right.
Nothing's definite.
Yeah. Go ahead, David. You talk about this.
I've got a lot of thoughts on the Lakers. With the Warriors, well, Jarod said it. It's Klay. And then, Draymond Green in the Olympics has been, he's just an incredible defender. He's just an incredible defender and a great passer facilitator, can handle the ball. He missed his first shot.
I saw that.
Now he's taking 2 a game. I talk about, Ben Simmons, his issues a head scratcher, but Draymond's not far behind. Like, how do you get so bad as a shooter? You just don't ever shoot. And he's making some now, which is nice. It'd be very different for them if he was weaponized.
Yeah.
And Otto Porter, you're right. He knows how to play. Minimum deal is no big deal there. They've got the kid from Michigan. I just went blank on his name.
Yeah.
Who's got a Poole.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Poole.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Peel or Poole?
Poole. Mm-hmm.
Peel's the directress. So he's pretty good.
Or is a bunch of jokers.
He's pretty good. Kuminga has looked talented in as has I think they drafted Moody.
Yep.
Right.
But they need time.
Yeah, but they're not going to help them win this year. Yeah, not even remotely close. They should be in the G League most of the year. So unfortunately Wiseman can't play in summer league. God, he could really use these games.
He sure needs game. Really he needs game reps, man. Like he needs game reps.
They got Looney, knows what he's doing. They could pull a trade too. If you're looking at most likely team to do a trade, they're on the list.
So I guess they get to take a few months and see who becomes valuable in the trade market, right? Mm-hmm. And then you maybe that's what whoever who can get you the player that you feel like you need from your G League team, right? Then they're out.
Yeah, I think it's just also the reality. Last thing on the Warriors fans is we know winning NBA championships are extremely difficult. You guys went to 5 finals and won 3. Like that just may be it.
You're saying they're greedy? Just give it up. Yeah.
Right? That just may be it in the Steph Curry peak, like human inferno version. That just may be what you get. Like, and guess what? Be happy with that. How many teams got 0? Right? Like,
it's definitely true, but I guess I feel like as long as Steph's this good, you gotta do everything.
You gotta try. Dream, right? You have to dream and try, but the reality is it's just tough. All right, Lakers, the geriatric AARP team of the NBA. Listen, what they got to hope for is that Malik Monk, because he's the youngest guy they got, right? Taylor Horton Tucker. Anthony Davis is what, 28? Or is he 30?
28. They got Kendrick Nunn.
Kendrick Nunn. You got to hope that those guys do enough all regular season long so that LeBron and all the old guys can rest those legs. Because in the playoffs, that's when you need them to be at their best. And remember, we're going back to 82 games. It's coming off a short off seat. Like, listen, like this is, I know LeBron is like indestructible, whatever. Guys, he's 37. Like, and the year before he had the growing, like it's now we're seeing, right? Every year something happens, right? And we know the best predictor of injury is previous injury. Well, it's on the register now. So I think the Lakers to be really smart about managing the minutes of those guys so they come postseason, they're in the best shape. And look, I don't think that they're guaranteed to win a title either. And the big key for them, of course, is not only LeBron's health, Anthony Davis. If he is healthy the whole season and plays like an MVP candidate, well, now we're talking about, all right, they got the dude they need, which is why LeBron signed up to play with him in the first place. But he has his own injury history issues. And, we'll see what happens.
Go ahead, Jamie.
I was just going to say quickly, I called David. I was so blown away by this fact, but do you know how many players over 33 or older scored 100 points in the NBA last season? And a season where I think almost 600 players at least had some moment on a roster.
Scored 100 points total for the season?
Yeah. 33, not that old, right?
Right.
33 or older. How many players?
Probably like 3 of them. LeBron, Chris Paul, like it's probably like 3 or 4 guys.
No, I mean, it was 30, but 33 to me is like, we're like, oh, we think still peak. Like, no. 33 means that you're in like, 5-10%, depending how we count who plays in the NBA, of the oldest, right? So it's not likely that anyone 33 or older is going to be elite, right? And then, as you mentioned, the 3, like, literally in the top 20, it's just LeBron, Chris Paul, and Mike Conley, who are 35 or older. So they got all these guys who are old. Probably some of them will work out, right? Honestly, I bet Carmelo will be great. Like he's going to work he's in shape. He can really shoot. And the one thing I'd say about the Lakers' current setup is it's a huge bet on Frank Vogel, which is like, can he turn just about anybody who walks into the door into a good team defender? Like, I don't know.
Well,
but if he can, let's just acknowledge where we are right now, which is these are a bunch of terrible defenders.
Yeah.
If they are a good defensive team, in 6 months, like, woo, Frank, like, great job.
But they have a mixture of guys that are really bad on offense, guys that are really bad on defense, that are of the young guys coming in. And so, yeah, Frank won't just have to coach defense. We have not mentioned Russell Westbrook's name yet.
I know.
You cats have it. I'm mentioning it right now. Okay, that's we're getting lost in the flowers. Meanwhile, there's gigantic bears coming up. Pay attention to the Bears. We're going to play Russell Westbrook with LeBron and AD.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be killer in the regular season. I think they've done a good job after initially going after old people that LeBron trusts and all of that, including Russell. I like the flyer on Nunn, who's not a flyer. He's a good player. He's a good offensive player. And Malik Monk, who came around late in his career in Charlotte. He's still relatively young. It's the postseason that I'm concerned about, even if they're healthy, which is a gigantic if. Same with the Nets, gigantic if, right? If both teams are super healthy, Nets, Lakers seem like a likely mashup. But it's a big if. The question is, in the postseason, what happens, right? Is Russ going to dominate the ball? If Frank Vogel, it's a Frank Vogel thing on the defense. You're right. It is a lot LeBron on offense. What is LeBron going to put up with? What's he willing to let Russ do and fail at? Mm-hmm. I don't know if Russ will come around. I'm sure he's going to be super motivated, and I'm glad that he's home, and they'll be fun to watch in the regular season. And I think, the Lakers had such an identity 2 seasons ago that I was able to say in June of the pandemic, year 1, because now we're in year 2 of it, I thought they'd win a title because no one else would have the time to bake a good enough cake to win the contest because of the pandemic. But I don't know what it's going to look like this year. There's lots of new pieces.
Yep.
That identity is, they have Dwight, but 2 years older, Dwight, or a year and a half older. We keep thinking it was 2 years ago they won. No, it was last October, right? They just won. It's not even a year. I don't know what that identity is going to be. And that's a big issue. Because for 2 years, they've been, to Henry's point, great defensive teams, number 3 and number 1 in back-to-back seasons. I don't know. They're going to have to work harder. Caruso is a huge part of that, and he's gone. Yep. Right? Marc Gasol's still there. I'm not sure how beneficial that is. AD is going to have to play center in the playoffs, which is fine. They have to protect in the regular season some. I think given all their issues, once they got Russell, they made the best of that situation. I would not have done the Westbrook deal, but they did. They're going to win a bunch of regular season games, just of sheer force of will. Like those three guys have such a will to win. But in the postseason, when guys are really tweaking stuff up, I think it's problematic. We'll see. That's what the season's for.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Coach, 100%. And look, for the Lakers, again, you got LeBron and AD together because you're like, we're going to win a championship. Well, you won one already. Like, right? So the bet worked out. Like, are you going to win more? I don't know. It's really hard to do. And your point is correct, Coach. I think they will do well in the regular season. But when I know, like, I'm going to game plan to make sure Russ is shooting threes and shooting jumpers, it's kind of good for me. If I'm on the other team, right? So
LeBron's going to have to say to him in the postseason, dude, give me the fucking ball. Kevin Durant didn't do that when they were together in OKC. Yeah. James Harden did for the most part until the end of some of those series. LeBron's going to just have to save the team from Russ that way and just say, let me orchestrate. And then they got to make him a cutter.
Yes.
That goes back to LeBron and Vogel figuring out how else to use Russell. And that it can work. Like, I'm not saying it can't work.
And get him to buy in, because we've seen him when he gives the ball up and kind of just stands there, right? And that ain't gonna work. Utah. So we got Rudy and Donovan, like, which of course we both love. I love Bogdanovich. I love the Mike Conley, of course. What killed them was they're not athletic enough on the wing, and they got beat off the bounce by everybody on the Clippers. And I don't know that they've done anything to improve that with what they've done in their free agency pickup. That to me is still a glaring weakness. So I think they'll be great again regular season, but when they play teams that have super athletic wings, how are they stopping them? And I don't think they've answered that.
I have a different view. Nothing. I'm sorry. I don't at all think you're wrong. I see the way the season ended differently. Like a lot of these teams, they weren't good enough when their two best players got hurt. Two of their best three, in Mike and Donovan. I don't understand what any of these guys are doing when they have the best team in the regular season who lost, not because of anything. I mean, you're right that they really struggled to guard a Clippers team without Kawhi, but it's because they went tiny, and Rudy Gobert is such an integral part of what they can do. But I think they would have easily beat the Clippers without Kawhi if Donovan and Mike were completely healthy the entire series. Now, that's a big if, but everyone's got to deal with that. So, but if you still can have the best regular season team, why would you change it? They've already got rid of two of their four. They played four bench players. Two are gone. And I read or hear about every day they're trying to trade Joe Ingles.
Yeah.
I think Golden State wants Joe Ingles. I'm going to tell you what, if Golden State gets Joe Ingles and Clay recovers fully or to 90% even, if Joe Ingles is still a brilliant offensive player who knows how to find ways to make plays defensively, that would be an amazing for Golden State. They need another primary ball handler facilitator.
How is Joe Ingles so good? Like, I don't.
I have an easy answer.
He's really good. But why are there not more people doing what he does? Like, it seems like it must be tricky.
Tricky. Number one, top 5 shooter on the planet, off the dribble or the catch. I haven't looked it up, but I think he's top 5. Amazing shooter off the and with unlimited range, thanks to Steph. They all bombs away, right? That boomer bombs away. But also, my guess is, I've said this before. If you remember when they did the autopsy on Secretariat, they found a heart twice the size of the typical thoroughbred. My guess is guys like Chris Paul and Joe Ingles and LeBron, Chauncey Billups. I think if you did autopsy on their brain long after they're gone, I think you'd find a processing ability like a computer.
Yeah.
So the game, it's like Neo seeing the bullets. The game is coming so slow to Joe Ingles or Wonder Woman. She can catch bullets too. These guys all look like slow motion. So what does he have to rush for? I only have to go 1 degree faster than you were running. And in his mind, he sees it. So he's just that brain. It's brilliant. And that's why in Golden State, forget about it. Like, he'd be so good there. So,
Coach, fully healthy Utah, you like them to come out of the West next year?
Now I don't know, because they changed things and still are. So Dennis Lindsay left. The new GM, Justin Zanuck, I don't like what he's done so far. Rudy Gay's okay. But Rudy Gay to that environment, I'm not sure. Like, we all know Rudy Gobert's got some issues in terms of connecting with the team, whatever. That team had figured it out and won as a 1 seed. why do you change it? It was weird to me. And they just got Eric Pascal, who's all right.
From the Warriors. Yep.
I like him. I don't know how it all fit together. I know they were rolling before. No, I wouldn't favor them right now. I don't know who I'd favor in the West.
Yeah, I don't know.
Unless you told me Jamal Murray's okay.
Denver, maybe.
Which I don't think he will be.
I can tell you that.
Right. I mean, I think the more interesting team is Miami.
Michael Porter Jr. season in Denver.
Right. I think the Heat, talk about, they were in the finals 10 months ago. They lost in 4 straight to Milwaukee, the eventual champs. And they didn't say, okay, let's just get a little bit better. No, they changed a lot. And I think there's some problems with their team shooting wise.
Yes. I was just
I
going to
also
say.
think they're going to be hard to score on.
Yes, defensively, I love them. But if you play Jimmy, Bam, and
PJ Tucker, no.
and PJ together, like spacing, I'm like, ooh, I don't like it.
No, there's another bad spacing guy they have. I just went blank on it.
Yeah.
Who's the other guy they have?
Not Duncan Robinson.
No, they have Duncan, of course.
Duncan's great.
They probably have Tyler off the bench.
Yeah.
But they're talking about starting PJ with Jimmy and Adebayo.
Yeah.
And Lowry.
Like I mean, Kyle will help you. The other thing too is they're betting on, because the deal for Duncan's $90 million. They're betting that he makes another leap, right? Because why else would you pay someone $90 million? It can't just be what he's been doing. I expect to imagine him to make another step up in his development. Is what I guess.
He was going to get the money from somewhere else too.
I had an interesting Bam Adebayo thought because I spent part of yesterday watching a peak Jermaine O'Neal documentary, right? And like David has written, and we talked about like Bam is sort of a kind of a new kind of big man. Like Jermaine O'Neal's a little bit of the model, right? Like they're not totally dissimilar.
Except Jermaine developed an amazing, not LaMarcus Aldridge mid-range.
Yeah.
But I remember coaching against guys. I was just telling my son this morning. Jermaine O'Neal is the DeAndre Ayton story before DeAndre Ayton. He came right out of high school. He sucked.
Yeah.
He sucked. And then I remember thinking, he's like the best big man in the world. It isn't Tim Duncan or Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah. He got really good.
Fucking really good on both ends.
Yeah.
All NBA, man. Multiple times.
The rim against him. And he had a little jumper that was so sweet. Yeah, Bam's got to develop that. I'm watching Bam, and you guys are watching the Olympics. He doesn't have that yet.
But Jermaine didn't have it till he was 24, 25, right?
Oh, it took a while. Yeah. Bam does guard, and Bam competes and passes and handles. But that's the issue to Jarod's point, Bam at 5, Butler at 3, and PJ at 4. That's a shot creator in Bam. I'm sorry, a facilitator in Bam, a shot creator in Butler who can't shoot, but he can create his own shot mid-range and lower and pass. And then PJ is a nothing. It's a nothing. I think it's a terrible. I think it's like the Bulls' mistake, except it's not as expensive. He's not as expensive as DeRozan. He was a nothing in the final. Took 3 shots a game.
The Heat are gonna foul the hell out of you. That's what I have to say about that team. So good luck when you play against them. It's gonna be painful the next day.
Yeah, and Lowry. Well, let's just see. Henry smartly talks about that cliff that LeBron at some point is going to go over, but all these guys have to. Lowry was down last year. The guess is it was just a COVID year in Tampa and all of that, but we don't know.
Last East team, Brooklyn, they got Patty Mills. Everybody saw that. Like I like what they did. They got Blake back. The only person they were able to re-sign was Jeff Green, and they knew that was going to happen. Like we couldn't keep everybody. Couldn't keep Jeff, Bruce, and Blake. One of them had to go. They opted on Jeff going. Re-signed everybody. Got Patty Mills. Got James Johnson, who will be situational for them defensively, and they have an $11.5 million trade exception as part of the Spencer Dinwiddie sign and trade, which I'm sure Sean will just kind of keep on ice until probably the trade deadline to figure out, okay, what, to your point, Coach, when they play, all right, what do we need to fill out and grab? And, Nick Claxton and Reggie Perry are playing Summer League, as is Alize Johnson. And I mentioned that before. Those 3 guys, to me, are critical to this team winning a championship, not because they're going to be winning finals MVP, but because if you play them in the regular season, a lot of minutes, they will play valuable minutes for you come playoff time. And they're all young, which, we're a fan of here on TrueHoop. Young guys help.
They should limit their trio to 50 games.
I agree.
50 games, figure it out. Let these other guys play. They have a lot of talent. And even if they're a 3 or 4 seed, it won't matter if they're all healthy. They'll be the best team, I think. Milwaukee's good. And they got George Hill to take Jeff Teague's minutes that he couldn't get in the finals. Jeff Teague wasn't in the court long. George Hill, I don't love, but it's probably an upgrade there. Holiday scene, I like the Olympic. I like how Lamar Odom came back from playing with the Dream Team and really had his best year. I've written about that before. I think Drew Holiday is rolling.
Yeah, playing well.
Second best overall player for the Olympics.
He's playing well.
Which
I just want him to take a nap. Like, just Drew, you done a.
He will.
Take it.
It's coming. Like
somebody get him like a lounger on the beach. Like, wait, yeah, let's take care of Drew. Like, let's
Henry,
get
I want Drew. I want Drew, Chris, Book, Kevin to take naps.
Just a big old nap. Yeah.
I don't know if this is the last game. Every time they take Durant out, the other team goes in and Pop's like, you got to get back in. I'm like, this dude is 32 coming off an Achilles. He needs to not play basketball right now. But he's also reminding everyone why he might be the best player in the world at the same time. Like,
for all the assembled wisdom of every coach Kevin Durant has ever had, does anybody know how to say, like,
no,
you've done enough?
Nobody.
Has anybody ever won that conversation?
No. You're not winning that conversation. That's, yeah. We have to enjoy the ride.
What do we think about tonight, guys? It's 10:30 tonight. I'm going to watch my son.
What's interesting, as I said to you, Coach, I was concerned about this team. I was like, I just don't like the spacing, and I still don't like it in many instances. But what I do like what they're doing, there was a stretch in that semifinal game. My God, when they decide they're going to guard people, holy hell.
But they've been doing that a lot. I think they've been guarding.
They can guard.
They've been coming out of first quarters really guarding well. And I like the team. I didn't like their switched everything. It turned out to work just fine for them. It's forced their guards to really bring a high motor defensively, not just guarding the bigs, which they often have to do, and they're being posted and sealed, but helping on lobs and everything. They're playing with force. The Olympic team is playing with force. KD probably needs to have a great game. They've got to get help from Booker, who was great in the semifinal game. Holiday's been the second most consistent player. Tatum has been their most exciting offensive player after KD in a couple games. That would help. Our depth will be good, and I think we're better off. Someone wrote this. We're better off playing France because we've played them before.
Yep.
Australia runs a very hard offense to guard, and we shut them down. But that means we've really prepared for it. There's only so much you can cram into their big brains. They know France's stuff. They know it's coming. I think we'll see a much better effort. Now, France, Evan Fournier was unbelievable the last time. I don't know if it'll be that way again. I think we have a chance to win, like we've been winning, 10 plus points. It'll be a good game. We may not win, but we're by far the more talented team. We got to make shots. And that's what's happened these last games over 4 quarters. We eventually make shots. Jarod, we've not lost a quarter of the last 3 quarters in the last 3 games. We've tied one, and now it's because we're up 25. We've won all the other ones, including by big margins sometimes. So
what they've been able to do is when the 3-point ball isn't there, which it hasn't been in the last few games in the first half, their defense keeps them in it. They make a nice run to keep it close. And then once the shots start falling and they're playing that defense, that's why they're the best team in the world, right?
They're attacking the rim. We're getting a lot of dunks. We're going at people because they're really extending. We're the best shooting team in the tournament. So they're really extending their defense out, and we're just attacking the paint with a lot of guys that can drive. It'd be great if Damien Lillard played great. We haven't seen him have a big game. It'd be nice for him to score 20 points.
He might be thinking about other things, Henry. I don't know. What might be on what might be on Damien's mind? Yeah, what might be on Damien's mind, Henry?
Don't know. Actually, really interesting point is okay. We have only 2 minutes. The Sixers hired Phil Beckner. Phil Beckner was from Weber State with Damien Lillard. When Damien hits, series-changing shots, he goes on CJ's podcast and talks about how he spends all summer with Phil Beckner, who seems like a great guy. The most strategic thinking, deal-making guy in the NBA, who has asset that most makes sense to trade for Damien Lillard, has hired. Like, forget everything else that you believe or have heard. Like, the Sixers believe that the trick to getting Damien Lillard is wooing him as if he were a college recruit, which says a lot about how this is working.
Mm-hmm. We're not saying anything's happened.
I'm saying it.
We're just saying read the tea leaves, and of course that makes sense, right? Simmons probably, if you're Neil O'Shea, you want Tybal and Maxey and all kinds of things, picks, whatever. But that makes sense to me. And then you got Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid as a 1-2 combo with Tobias Harris.
And Daryl's key worry, it appears, is Damien into it. Does he think we're the right team for him? That's the box he's trying to check.
Correct. And this is one way to do it.
He's forcing. I think he did this now he's got someone in Damien's ear saying, "Dude, just tell Neil O'Shea you're ready." Yeah, that's why I hired that guy. I think.
Are we going to summer league? No, I tossed it around for a while, Devin, but I am not going. I decided to stay away from the hot desert. There's also that.
We're not here next week, everybody. Rob, next week. We'll see you a week from Monday.
We will. Have a good week, everybody. Take care.